Hello and welcome to What's Bubbling a ZIM. I'm inventor Dan Zen, and I'm so wanting to show you the particle emitter. But before we do a bubbling on the particle emitter, we should take a look at a whole bunch of little things that have been adjusted to ZIM as we move to ZIM VEE or ZIM 5. V being the Roman numeral for 5. Okay, so let's go in and take a look at the docs and the updates right here. Scroll on down. Here they are. Now, we did a bubbling just recently on ZIM VEE and ZIC, introducing that, and that's this way that you can pass in random options, a very important thing, and really sort of setting the tone for ZIM VEE. That and the fact that we've got, well, should I tell you? I may as well tell you now because I'm not sure going to be able to make it through this whole this whole bit that we're going to look through now. We're going to look at the smaller changes, which are these, and very sort of text-based. So I'll tell you now. ZIM 5 isn't just about the code. The code, I think ZIC and ZIM VEE is really cool. But ZIM VEE also brings in 5 external JS files, so modules. There's the pizzazz, the physics. Pizzazz is a bunch of sort of asset-driven things. Physics, 3D stuff, the game module, and the sockets module. So we're going to properly support those, put some online documentation for them, put them in their own section and that kind of thing. So that's 5 of them, and we're ZIM 5. Cool, huh? Not only that, but we're relaunching the site with the animator working on this guy right here, like that guy. That's me. Well, I don't want to give it away. That's Dr. Abstract. And he's animated throughout the site, the upcoming site, which will launch in the early summer, we'll call it, late spring, early summer. And his sidekick, so you'll see more of that. So yeah, lots of excitement there. However, the code for ZIM VEE has just been launched. So this very day, about an hour ago, you can now use ZIM 5. And these are the changes inside it. So there are some which may break things that you've built in the past. So that's why I want to take you through these and some improvements that, that you might want to use as well. So we introduced this in the last bubbles, the ZIM VEE and the ZIC. We're going to look at the emitter and the wiggle in the next What's Bubbling. But right now, we want to take a look at all the rest of these little things. So with ZIM animate and move, these accept ZIM VEE values. So for many of the parameters, including any of the values that you're animating. Any of the properties that you're animating, such as the alpha or the scale or the position or something like that, you can pass in a ZIM VEE value, and then it will randomly choose from that to animate. Now, where that could be really powerful, but isn't quite there yet, but where that could be really powerful is imagine if you're looping, and every time you looped, it would then randomize the values that you're setting to animate. We can't quite do that unless Create.js were to support a similar type thing, the same sort of format as ZIM VEE, in which case we could pass in options that we want it to do, that we want it to animate each loop. So do you see why we need that? Why that's valuable? Right now we're kind of stuck. Every time it loops, it's going to have the same values, as far as I know. But with a ZIM VEE technique, the looping could be animate something differently each time. Now, we could implement that ourselves at ZIM by saying, all right, let's not use the tween.js loop that's sort of built into the engine behind this. We could just run a different animation each time, and then we can do the ZIC things. But when it comes to, we already do that with rewind. Rewind is our own sort of version on top of that. It just gets really complicated, animates quite complicated, and the changes are big enough already. So it may be in the future that we approach that, but not at the moment. So that's a bit about ZIC and the animate, or the ZIM VEE and animate. So we talked a bit about, just down here, we've got the move and animate, added a rewind call, a loop wait call, oh sorry, a rewind wait call, a loop wait call, a loop wait params, and a wait params. We did a what's bubbling on those 4 things prior to the one on ZIM VEE and ZIC. So have a look there. But since that bubbling, we added another one called wait call and weighted call and weighted parameters. Note the subtle difference there. Loop wait call happens as it's waiting, as it's just starting to wait, and we call this function. Rewind wait call starts as it's waiting to rewind. As soon as it's starting to wait, it calls that function. Once it rewinds, that's a normal rewind call. But just note that that got shifted because rewind call used to happen at the beginning. Now rewind call happens at the end. But that's all talked about in bubbling two bubblings ago. Since then, we added the weighted call and the weighted params. And this wasn't just because we wanted to. It's actually because as we were building, we found that we needed it. It's like, oh crap. So now I think we finally got a call at every stage throughout an animation. Now this is like kudos to the Create.js tween system. They can do that just by chaining. So they've chained all the steps, and you can throw things in anywhere you want when you chain any amount of them. And that's all great. It's just a slightly different process than the rest of the things. So what ZIM's done is simplified that and made animate and move work just like all the rest of the functions. But in that simplification process, we lost some of the flexibility. And that was great at the beginning. It's just sort of like, but then as I've been using it more, and this is becoming more and more serious, and it's sort of like, oh wait, we got to put in a call here and a call there, and so now I think we got it, all the calls there. The one thing that made that possible, that it wasn't possible at the beginning to do that, just because we were running parameters in order. And there's no way that you can deal with 30 parameters if you have to worry about the order of them. So what made it possible for us to do it this way is the ZIM Duo technique. In other words, really the ZIM Duo technique is the same as chaining, if you think about it. You just start an object, and then on each line, you can just pass in the parameters. It's not quite the same as chaining because we can't repeat things. So there's where chaining has advantages, is you can chain a call here, you can chain a call way down here, you can chain a call way down here. Whereas with the parameters, we've got to provide specific parameter names to chain at certain times. And now, like I said, I think we've got them all. That's great. But it does break the parameter order, so our apologies there, because we wanted to put the weighted, I guess the weighted call and the weighted parameters by the weighted, and the loop call and the loop parameters by the loop, etc. I think I got a mistake there. Yeah, I do. It's just the weighted call, the loop call, the weighted params, and the loop params. So I'll go ahead and fix that. Oh, caught live on film. Bloop, bloop, bloop. All right, no big deal. Okay, so note the subtle difference there. I think I was getting to it, but I'm not sure if I completed it. And this is a loop wait call, which happens just as it's waiting, whereas the weighted call happens after it's waited, after the very first wait. So there's a very first wait called wait, and after we've waited, call a function right there and then. Okay, now there's no need to call the function at the beginning of that waited because that's at the beginning of the animation. So there you go. In the beginning of the animation, you already know you're at the beginning of the animation. You just call your own function at that time. But this one is sort of after it's waited, that initial period. That waited period only happens once, right at the very beginning. From then on, it will loop and rewind, ignoring the waited time. If you want time every time you rewind or loop, then use a loop wait or a rewind wait, that type of thing. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I think I've been doing this too long, huh? Oh, my goodness. How can I babble all of this stuff? I told you this was going to be a long one. All right, so the parameter order is broken. Hopefully you're using the ZIM Duo technique on that anyway, and then the order doesn't matter. Now, we don't want to miss this one. This is another one that's been added to animate. So added a feature to ZIM Animate and Move to animate relative to the current property value. Now, tween engines like GreenSock have been doing that for years, and we had that back in Flash, and so nothing new there, but it's nice to be able to animate relative. For instance, if something's already rotated and you want to rotate it 360, to do it currently, you would say, oh, take its current rotation plus 360. And, it's just an extra little step in there. If you wanted to move something over 100, you would say, oh, well, take the object's current x plus 100. Well, now what you can do is just put quote 100. And quote 100 will mean that it's a relative value. So you just put quotes around the numbers, and then it's relative to whatever the current property is. So that's quite handy. It would be actually nice to show you the code to do that, but hopefully you get the idea. I'm just thinking, you know what? I don't think I documented that. Another lie. Yeah, isn't this great? We do these bubbling things. This is my unit testing. Well, anyway, yeah, I'll get to documenting that. Don't worry, putting an example in there as well, so you'll be able to see that. Mumble, mumble, mumble. Okay, adjusted rewind call. Oh, so in that adjustment, but we talked about that in the penultimate bubbling, because it's called. Ooh, we use the word penultimate. Not the last one, but the one before it. In that bubbling, we talked about the fact that the rewind call and loop call have been shifted to move after the afterwards. Okay, after the wait. Prior, they were shifted before the wait. Prior to that, they were shifted after the wait. Okay. Don't tell anybody. We're ready for the world to come now, but over the last couple of years, it's been a little bit of shifting here and there. Not too much, hopefully, and that's why we've got these little break things in there to show you what has shifted. These things happen. Speaking of shifting, these are some general adjustments now. Aside from some glitch fixes up there in the anime, but maybe we won't mention those. You can read about them. Fascinating. Here we've got the triangle shifted, so the registration points have been sort of readjusted, which means that if you've got triangles around and you move to the new ZIM, some of those triangles may be in a slightly different position than they used to be, so you'll just need to sort of swap that. You'll figure it out, I'm sure. May have been only if you were using the adjust. I think the way we had adjust was probably flipped, and so that has now been flipped, so hopefully it's more logical. We slipped in the rotation to the cloning of properties. That was an oversight, so it's a break, because now if you clone things, they'll be rotated. It's a break in a good way, because now they would be expected to be. Maybe I should turn that break into an improvement. Yes! Nothing like a bug fix as an improvement. We did have an improvement in here. This one right here. Oh, this is kind of important. I skipped over it. So we fixed ZIM label. We were using number.isNotAnumber, and that doesn't work on mobile. Way to go, mobile! So I didn't realize that until we tried some things out in mobile, and the labels weren't going. I was like, hey, what's happening here? And that was it. So I call that an improvement. In other words, you have to update because of that. Now, I don't believe it's been ZIM forever, because we had labels working on it. So it's probably, we had an issue if you pass 0 into a label or something like, no, not a number. If you pass not a number into it, it would mess it up. So we now, we put that fix in a few ZIMs ago, but that fix didn't work on mobile. Okay, so sorry about that. Now that is fixing, or that is working on mobile. We've added a read-only frame weight property to the frame weight to the ZIM ticker. We've been using set frames per second, set FPS for frame rate. And but that's because CreateJS uses that. I would have rather just made a frame rate property that is a read-write frame rate property. So getter setter method in the background there. But right now it's a frame rate property if you want to find out the frame rate, and a set frames per second if you want to set that. We added a has method to the ticker, so a static method to the ticker, so you can find out if the ticker for a certain stage has a function already running, a certain function. Test for that. And we fixed a glitch in an interval by moving the next function. Okay, never mind, you don't need to know about that, but there you go. The interval was a race condition was occasionally not working properly, but that's fixed now. We added a ZIM added function. CreateJS doesn't provide an added to the stage event. It has an added one that allows you to track if you've added it to a container, and then you got to test to see if it's added to the stage. Maybe I should just keep on doing that. But anyway, we've got an added function where you say circle.added, please call back this function. So pass a callback function into the parameter here, and that callback function will be added, will be called when the object is added to the stage. It's actually polling. So every 100 milliseconds it polls to find out if it's got the stage. So a little bit of a pain. You can adjust the speed of that or adjust how the max number of polls, that kind of thing. We've adjusted the scale to take into account the current scale of an object. So if you scaled a circle to a rectangle size, and that's quite powerful, you can scale it to it in many ways. You can make it fit inside, you can make it fit outside, you can make it stretch to fit both width and height, kind of thing. If you now scale to an object that is itself scaled, it will scale to the scale of the scaled object. Before it was just scaling to the bounds of an object, and the bounds width and bounds height don't change when an object is scaled, so that was causing some confusion. Usually you scale to scale it to the stage, but if you scale it to another object, now it will probably work better as you expect if that other object is scaled. And we adjusted ZIM rand so that if you pass in 2 zeros or a single zero, then ZIM rand will return 0. Before, if you were passing in zeros, it would turn math.random, which isn't quite right. So hopefully that won't affect what you're doing, but it's possible that it might. Do we miss anything? We got a clone for shapes. That's kind of important too. When you clone a shape now, it was cloning the original color and the original border color and border thickness and that kind of stuff. Now, when you clone a shape, it clones the current border color, border stroke, that kind of stuff. Okay. So that's for a rectangle, a circle, and a triangle. Good. Oh boy, wasn't that fun? Okay, so that's some of the minutia here at What's Bubbling. Hopefully, well, you know, if you actually did make it through all of this, then wow, you must be using ZIM. That's great. Love to hear from you. You know, join the Facebook group. Make sure you're there and post any thoughts or comments or give some suggestions up on the GitHub. We had somebody ask for a particle emitter, and guess what? We made a particle emitter. So that's in an upcoming bubbling, except it's bloody like 1 o'clock in the morning. Can I do it? Maybe right in the morning. We'll see you later. Ciao. I'm Inventor Dan Zen. ZIMjs.com. Woohoo!